there's certain things that everybody should be able to notice. Anybody who was born, I would say, up until the mid-2000s was before they really started going crazy with certain things in the sky. But what I'm going to focus on this video is the sun in particular, because this is end times biblical prophecy that there's going to be signs in the heavens, and more specifically than that, in the sun and the moon, there's going to be signs as well. And so just to say what is written in the Bible that's going to happen to the sun, well, Isaiah told us that in the end, the sun and the moon are going to be brighter. And I think that both of that has happened in many of our lifetimes. From what I remember the moon looking like, nothing like what it looks like today. Today it shines so brightly, and the sun is so much brighter today. And I think this is not something that I ever hear people point out. That is the basis behind the whole climate change thing. It really has changed. That's one of those interesting, the whole CO2 nonsense is not right. I mean, the science behind it is they have to come from someplace, but the point is that has nothing to do with the ways that the Earth's climate has changed. It has to do with the sun being hotter and brighter, and the moon is more intense, and something that wasn't that apparent when I grew up. I mean, nobody ever told me this, but the moon does have cold light, and I just think that that's a lot more apparent today. Just like the sun feels so much hotter when the sunlight is on your skin, I think it's just more noticeable today that the moonlight has a cooling effect, which is very strange. Anyways, don't look at the sun or you'll go blind. I'm going to get into this video. And one thing, maybe they knew that things were going to happen with the sun, because I'll just say that back in the day, the sun wasn't nearly as bright. Today, I totally agree. You should never, under any circumstance, look directly at the sun with your naked eye today, unless it's very cloudy or the intensity of the sun has been dampened in some way. Because today the sun is so bright, I can't even look near the sun anymore on a clear day. And I use sunglasses today all the time, and I know people are just going to say it's because I'm older, but really I can tell that the sun is brighter than it used to be. I never used to wear sunglasses ever, and now there's not even a choice, because I'll just be blind without it. And I used to be able to look right at the sun. I wouldn't do it for long periods of time, but I was just one of those children that teachers are like, never look at the sun, never look at the sun. And they're obviously exaggerating about it. So many people are like, you're going to go instantly blind if you look at the sun. But I knew that was BS. So I did look at the sun as a child, and it was a bright, but not like instant blinding. You can't even look near it bright. Today it's very UV. It just seems like so hot and white, and like it has a lot more UV in it today. It used to be more like friendly, happy yellow sun. This is just something that people have pointed out. One of the easiest ways to point it out is old sun used to be yellow, new sun used to be white. It's the same sun. Some people are like getting really wacky with it, saying we have a new sun. It's just that the sun has been gradually changing over time. And I actually think that this is connected with time moving more quickly, because really what time is it has to do with the cycle of the sun. One day is one cycle of the sun, and that's where we get what a second is from that. People think that like a second is always the same length throughout all time, but they forget that it really has to do with the sun and breaking that cycle down into equal pieces. And why I think that's connected with the sun being brighter is because it's just like more energy is being pumped into the system. It's like the sun is doing its circuit faster, and it's just glowing hotter and brighter. And so, to continue the thought about never look at the sun, I used to look at the sun sometimes just as a kick, and it didn't make me go instantly blind. I don't wear glasses today. I'm in my mid-30s. I still have perfect vision. And looking at the sun in the past didn't used to be that harmful. I mean, where did sun gazing even come from? There's people that, hopefully they don't do it today. I really don't advise it today because the sun is so bright. But sun gazing as a phenomenon should never have existed ever if looking at the sun instantly made you go blind. Now, and I will point out another thing. I think that the reason that people talk about it a lot is because you should never, ever, ever look at the sun through like binoculars or something. That is a recipe for disaster. So it's probably one of those things where they tell children to never, ever, ever directly look at the sunlight, because in certain scenarios you can just like blast your retinas to pieces. Like, it would be very, looking through lenses and then amplifying the sun, that is a mega no-no idea. So that's probably where it comes from, just telling children never ever look at the sun. But I'm here to tell you that back in the 90s when I grew up, with your naked eye, being, you know, as safe as you can, looking at the sun, making sure to not look through crazy amplifiers or anything, it was okay, and it didn't kill you, and it didn't make your retinas die instantly. And the sun was a happy, warm, yellow color. Today, the sun just feels like a death ball, a white, fiery. It's not a ball though; it's a disc. And maybe that's part of why they didn't want people looking at it, because if you look at the sun, you can tell it's a disc, not a ball. Anyways, Isaiah chapter 30, verse 26. Moreover, the light of the moon shall be as the light of the sun, and the light of the sun shall be sevenfold, as the light of 7 days, and the day that the Lord bindeth up the breach of his people, and healeth the stroke of their wound. This is talking about end times. You can go read the chapter if you want more context, but I just always come back to this verse whenever talking about, oh, the moon is brighter than it used to be, the sun is brighter than it used to be. Show people, hey, this comes from the Bible, and it's end times prophecy in the Bible, and look, it's happening today. And there's more end times prophecy about the sun and the moon turning to blood. Has anyone else noticed? It seems like the blood moons have been very, very frequent these days. And it talks about the sun going dark. And I think that is connected to more energy being pumped into the system. The sun is a light. It's going to be like a light bulb that just bursts, like the filament just bursts one day because it's had too much power put into it. And that's going to be like when the sun goes dark. And anyways, so for the rest of this video, I'm just going to go over some examples of ways that I have noticed the sky, or specifically related to the sun, being different. Halos. Sun halos are very, very common these days if they're spraying all over the sky. You know what I'm talking about. And I remember the first time I saw this was in the mid-2000s. So during my entire childhood, I never saw a sun halo, ever, until about the same time that they started spraying the skies. And so about the same exact time that I started noticing the chemtrails, and the first time that I saw one of those silvery haze days where the whole sky is just covered in the silver haze, that was the first time I saw a halo. And it's probably supposed to be a very, very rare phenomenon in the sky, but it's not rare anymore. It's very common. The moon is so bright that the moon casts its own halos today, if they've been spraying a bunch, and there you go. They just blame everything on crystals, ice crystals. Really, a lot of these phenomenon have to do with the firmament. Sundogs, it has to do with the firmament. And I think that the reason, so this is just a personal theory, I think the reason that sundogs, correct me if I'm wrong, I think a lot of phenomenon happen more in the north. And in my personal opinion, the north is closer to the edge of the ice wall. And even though most flat earth maps, they do it backwards, but look at most flat earth maps, it doesn't make sense how the massive lands in the north all get crunched into the center of the map. That doesn't work. But anyways, my personal theory is that some of these phenomenon happen more frequently in the north because it's near the edge of the ice wall, so you get different optical properties at the edge. But my belief is that it has to do with the firmament. A lot of these phenomenon. These days, I don't have a picture of it, but these days I see a lot of people mentioning rainbows in the clouds. And so I don't know I also have this other theory that maybe the firmament is coming down because New Jerusalem comes down from heaven. So some things, I'm not sure if it's because the sun is brighter. Is that why we see rainbows and clouds fairly frequently? Is it because they're spraying, so there's more metallic material in the clouds? Is it because, I don't know. All I know is that it's different today, and there might be multiple reasons. Sometimes there's multiple reasons for things. Best time to see the northern lights in Oregon. This is not normal. Have you guys noticed that the northern lights have been creeping southward? Does this mean, is this related to the sun being more bright, or does this go into the other theory I have about the firmament being lower might also make northern lights creep in? Double rainbows. Here's just another one. I'm not entirely sure. Is it just because the sun is brighter? Is it multiple things at once because the sun is brighter and other things happening? But I personally believe that double rainbows did not used to be as frequent, as common as they are today. And it's like ever since that double rainbow video went viral, they seem very common today. That's just my personal opinion, that I don't remember growing up with double rainbows being very common or even knowing what a double rainbow was. And yes, some of this could be attributed to, well, once you learn about something, then you're going to see it more frequently. But I don't think that's what's happening here entirely. Have you guys noticed that it seems very easy for there to be double rainbows today? And so this is just one more thing that I think could be related to the sun being brighter and possibly the firmament being lower. I don't know. I have noticed that allergies are a lot crazier, it seems, these days. I don't know if that's related, but also vertigo. People seem to have a lot of vertigo type illness today, and like the changing, when the weather changes, I feel it so badly now. Like I can just feel it in my head sometimes, like, oh man, the weather's changing, and I don't remember it being like that. I don't know how much of that is just because I'm older, but this is a ramble video. I'm throwing all this information out there just because some of you might connect with it. So, the reason I have this photo is because something that I think is very different now is when the sun dips behind a cloud. So much more so today, what it feels like outside is dependent on, are you in direct sunlight or not? And I don't think it used to be so extreme. So let me just give you an example. Today, you'll be so chilly that you need a jacket, and then the sun pops out from behind a cloud and you feel like you're going to sweat in a minute. It's so extreme and so dependent on, are you in direct sunlight or not? Have you guys noticed that it seems more extreme? And I don't remember it being like that in times past. Sure, you would notice it if the sun was behind a cloud or not, but it wasn't such extreme differences. The sun goes behind a cloud and I'm like shivering instantly. The sun pops back out and I'm taking my clothes off trying to get a tan. And it's March. Blinded by the light, car accidents. I never used to wear sunglasses, ever. I never used to wear sunglasses. I hated wearing sunglasses. But today, I cannot, it's dangerous to drive without sunglasses for sunrise and sunset today. And I mean, just any time during the day. It's so bright. And I think that's just, the sun is, like Isaiah prophecy, the sun is becoming very bright. It's foretold that that's going to happen in end times. And I think that it is happening. And I think that that's the reason for all the chemtrails and stuff, because they want to keep a lot of times you'll see them spraying in the morning and at sunset. And I think that a lot of it is to help with this. It is very dangerous, the glare in the morning for drivers. Have you guys noticed that? How different it is now? I used to be able to drive without sunglasses at all times of the day. And the reason being, so let me get to the point. Why is the glare so bad in the morning? The sun used to get not as bright when it was on the horizon. And it still does today, but the sun is so bright that now when the sun is on the horizon, it's very, very bright on the horizon. And it didn't used to be like that. The sun used to be so much softer, red almost, right? Aren't sunsets supposed to be red? But now the sun is just white hot all day. At sunrise, it's white hot, and it's just always white hot. It doesn't start out red and soft. So, I mean, to bring it back to the beginning of this video, talking about sun gazing and all that, it was always easier to look at the sun directly at sunset and sunrise, right? People watch the sunset, people watch the sunrise. And today, even at sunset and sunrise, the sun is so bright still. And that's why this driving thing is a thing. Okay, I've talked enough about these. I mean, the main point of this is the reason that they chemtrail everything is because the sun is so much brighter than it used to be. The weather would probably be going totally insane, and it would be even more obvious that the sun is brighter if they weren't spraying all the time. It probably would just instantly be summer, and our summers would probably be, like, I don't know, even more intense somehow. I think that's why they're doing all the spraying. To try to undo the sun being hotter than it used to be. They're trying to not let people notice, I guess. And obviously, a lot of agriculture and stuff probably depends on them modifying the weather. Otherwise, stuff would just burn up, I guess. So I'll just talk about one. I don't have a photo of it, but where I live, they have this Saturday market thing. And when it starts getting hotter, I've noticed that there will be wavy, splotchy clouds that don't look like real clouds. Wavy splotchiness that magically appears in front of the sun every Saturday market so that it's not like burning hot early in the morning. And yeah, that's just something that I've noticed, that it's like they can create clouds on command these days. And I think that it has to do with the 5G towers. I think that they're capable of just exciting you, just sending out, I don't know, but it looks like wave interference patterns, and clouds will just start appearing in wave and interference patterns. So I think that they have the technology these days they'll know, okay, this city is having their Saturday market. We're going to give them some cloud coverage today. I really think that weather is manufactured to that extent today, that various city councils or whatever can have the power to be like, oh, we're going to put up a solar shade for our market. I really do think that they do that. It's just whenever I go there and it starts getting hotter, we get the same mushy, that should be rare. I mean, I never saw this type of thing in my youth. We never had clouds that looked like interference patterns in my youth. So they just call it a wave cloud. Now, I do believe that some cloud patterns can look like waves, sure, because it's very similar fluid dynamics for the air and water and all that. But because I think that could be more natural. But sometimes it's just very, very obvious that it's not a natural cloud. This is looking more wacky, more like the kind of thing. And we got halos. That did not used to be a common thing at all. I actually have a video talking about sunscreen, so I'm going to keep this really short. People didn't used to have to worry so much about sunscreen. The sun is just brighter than it used to be. The UV seems more powerful than it used to be. And it's almost like sunscreen isn't optional anymore. Back in the day, people used to put on tanning lotion. It's because the sun wasn't so intense. And you could do that. And you wouldn't burn up to a crisp like you would today. Just an interesting thing is I've noticed that plastics and people's lawn furniture breaks down so fast these days in the sun. And kind of not related, but I remember growing up and everybody telling us that plastics take like 500 trillion years to decompose. But these days, plastics left out in the sun, they turn to dust pretty fast. This is just another personal thing that I've noticed. The California poppy used to grow all along the roads in California. I remember growing up and seeing California poppies all along the roads, but it's very rare. So California had a wet a wet season, and I did see a few California poppies when I recently went down to California, and it was greener than I've seen it in decades. And some of the lakes that normally were super dried up, they were pretty full. Excuse me. But anyways, so this year I saw a few poppies, but nowadays what I notice is up here in Oregon. So I didn't grow up in Oregon. People who grew up in Oregon would have to tell me, but to me it seems like the California poppy as a species has migrated north. Because nowadays in Oregon, it reminds me of what it used to look like growing up with the poppies, the California poppies growing all along the sides of the roads. And California poppies grow really well up here in Oregon these days. And so it's like the climates have kind of shifted, and California is just too dry now for the California poppy. And just too many years of drought, I guess. It doesn't self-propagate that well anymore. But up here in Oregon, it's exactly how I remember it used to be in California. So that's just one personal thing that probably has to do with the fact that the sun's hotter and brighter than it used to be. Species are going to react to that, and things are going to change. And has anyone noticed something similar to this? Leave it in the comments. I think that this is noticeable, that the spring and fall don't really feel like they exist that much anymore. And they feel so short, even though it is supposed to be 4 equal seasons. So sure, I understand that there might be some psychological truth to, well, the transitional seasons are going to feel shorter than the ones that are just like solid summer, solid winter, and then you have these transitional seasons. Okay, it does make sense to me that they would feel different, but these days, the seasons don't seem to keep their place. And the weather seems more wild and wacky to me. And it does seem like you don't just go from winter to spring. It's like winter, and then you start getting crazy summer days all of a sudden, and then it'll go away for a while. And same thing with the winter. It seems like winter conditions have just been more sporadic and extreme. And I think it just has to do with the sun is hotter and brighter, the moon is colder and brighter, and they're doing tons of weather manipulation these days. So I just think it's like every year has kind of wacky stuff going on these days because they're just trying to keep things normal, but there's only so much you can do. Anyways, I agree, and it seems like a lot of people think that it's like spring and fall don't really exist that much anymore. So here are just some old pictures, probably the early 2000s. I have no idea when this was, but this is what skies used to look like. This is what skies look like today, oftentimes. That's a bad one. Here's another old sky. And this is a picture, I'm pretty sure that that's a drone. Like, that doesn't even look like a solid object. So I think that a lot of times it's drone with some sort of technology that makes it look like, oh, it's an airplane. No, that does not look like a solid object even. That looks... So I think that in cases like this, it's a small drone, and they have some sort of technology that makes it appear as an airplane. But have you guys noticed stuff like this, where it's like it doesn't even look like a real airplane? And another thing about the sky I've noticed is that it comes in layers. I don't know if you can tell that well in this picture, but oftentimes you'll go outside and there will be clouds really close to the ground. There will be clouds medium far away, and then there's a white blanket very far away. I just don't remember it being like that growing up. And I think it has to do with the fact that they're spraying all the time. We get some weird weather combinations, and people are just they become used to it. By now, they've been spraying for decades, so people are just used to it and think it's how it's always been. But no, it's just how it's been gradually... They've been gradually upping it for the past couple decades, and now people are just used to it. It never was like this. You would never see this, ever, in a morning in the 90s. No morning in the 90s ever looked like this. And it never would be the case in the 90s that you'd be hanging out and one of these would fly overhead. And they look so close sometimes. I think that's a big difference between a lot of drone ones, I think, fly low. But they make it appear as if it's a big plane flying high. But you can tell when it's low because of parallax, basically, I think. The fact that if something's closer to you, it'll move faster. And if something's really, really high up, it lingers in the same spot a lot longer. Anyways, have you guys noticed this? When the sky will be completely silvered out, but you'll see they just continually spray. They just keep laying down layers. It's very bad. This is one of those mushy type of clouds that magically appears in front of the sun at specific times of day. And a lot of times this type of mushy cloud comes accompanied with the wave patterns, although it's not really in this picture. But what a gross, unnatural looking sky. X marks the spot. One time when I was driving down to California, they did a giant X marks the spot in the sky like this, and a mysterious shiny object, just like, it looked like a star in the middle of the daytime, started shining really brightly near the X in the sky, and then went away a few minutes later. It was weird. Anyways, oh, you can see the halo in the bottom right. That's it for this video. I hope